former CIA director and former CENTCOM commander, retired General David Petraeus, who actually co-authored the surge strategy, which was so successful in Iraq. And he saw the Iranian damage up close and personal to many people that he knew. General, your assessment of what we just learned from the Secretary of War and Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Well, I think this confirms that there is very good progress against all the different target sets. You just enumerated them again, but certainly the missile capabilities, the drone capabilities, the Navy, any residual nuclear capabilities, and of course the leadership across the board, starting with the Supreme Leader and continuing even apparently the assembly of experts that we're gathering to pick the next Supreme Leader. And then trying to set conditions if there is a force within Iran that breaks off from the regime or enters. You heard some discussion of the Syrian Kurds and so forth that could actually topple the regime. That's not something in general that is possible from the air. And so I think the president has been very careful after the initial conversation that he had with the American public to establish that we are setting the conditions for that. It's going to have to be those on the ground who take advantage of that. I will say that I'm sure that Central Command, which I was privileged to command as well, of course, is very focused on the so-called missile and drone math, but particularly the missile math. Again, how many missiles do they have left? How many launchers, which is even more critical because that's what puts them in the sky, going after the future capability, the manufacturing facilities, and then how many of the high-end interceptors do we have together with our Gulf state allies, partners. And we're talking not just ground, but also all those on the ships in the Gulf, outside it, in the Mediterranean, and integrated with all the Gulf states and also, of course, with Israel and their very comprehensive layered defense system.
So, General, we're learning more about the operation, and there's some reporting that talks about that the president got a call from the prime minister on last Monday about the coordinates of this meeting that they were able to take out, the Israelis. And that's when the president greenlit this mission. The combination of the threat, obviously, that they laid out in that press conference, do you agree with the president and the Defense Department that that was the right move to make, considering they had that one shot to take them all out at one time?
Yeah, let me describe the dynamics here. A short answer is yes, but let me describe the dynamics. A lot of us felt that Israel was going to strike Iran again within a month or two because of concern about the reconstitution of the missile stocks, which, despite the great Israeli and American defenses, still 5 to 7% of those got through in the 12-day war. I was just in Tel Aviv a few weeks ago. I saw the damage. They're still rebuilding from some of that. So that was a factor. There was also a sense in the U.S. that the nuclear talks, that the Iranians were just stringing us along. That got very frustrating. And then you get this exquisite intelligence and an opportunity to achieve at least tactical surprise. I think a lot of us felt that there was going to be something. I'm sure the Iranians did too. And the stunning miscalculation and arrogance of the Supreme Leader, seeing that we hadn't attacked in the early hours of the morning, which is when we do normally conduct these operations, they decide to gather in daylight. And that exquisite intelligence enabled the forces to take him out. And a number of other leaders in that meeting, and then also others across the board in the senior ranks of the defense ministry, the minister, their chairman of the Joint Chiefs equivalent, the head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, and so forth and so on. And that has continued, as has the effort. Again, we're talking about probably 4,000 total targets now between the Israelis and the Americans. And what we're doing now, because of the achievement of, at very least, air superiority, if not air supremacy, essentially the Iranians are defenseless at this point against air attack and missile attack, as long as you stay above a certain altitude. So now it's not just the B-2 bombers that have been deployed. It's now the B-1s and the B-52s. This is the real heavyweight stuff, carry enormous bomb loads, very precise. And they're now able to get into this fight as well.
General, go ahead.
General, we had heard about targeting the ballistic missile sites, that we weren't able to target those unless they were firing off missiles, and then we knew from where they were coming. Do we have more intelligence on that so that we can make sure we get all their ballistic missile sites and we don't have to keep going back in?
Well, I'm sure that we have knowledge about where the actual stocks are located. We have knowledge about the likely launch sites. We certainly know where the manufacturing facilities are. And we have very persistent intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets to enable us to identify activities that could indicate that there's going to be a launch. And this is really the focus of this campaign right now. I would say probably the main effort, because we want to dramatically reduce their ability to launch missiles and also drones, given the impact that they can have. You know, the Emiratis in particular have done spectacularly well against all of this. They invested not just high-end missile defense, but also in short-range air defense. So you're not sending a $2 million missile to take down a $20,000 drone. Nonetheless, there's still a couple of dozen that have gotten through, and we've seen what that has done. The Fairmont Hotel in flames, a port damaged very heavily, airport, all the rest of this. So that's really the main effort, I suspect, right now, along with ensuring that the naval capabilities are taken down very dramatically as well. And that is definitely happening at the same time.
General Petraeus, thanks so much. Thanks for the incident analysis on the ongoing fight in Iran. General David Petraeus, thanks.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.